Hello and welcome to episode 71 of Pixel Sift. My name is Gianni. I'm joined by Mitch. I'm joined by Scott. Each week we do this thing called Pixel Sift where we dig into the world of gaming and we find out all the stuff that matter to you and we pull it apart. And we, sometimes we ask questions that, need to be asked.
Hi, Johnny.
Like
how are you?
this week, where we asked some questions to David Clark,
Yes.
who is one of the programmers of the indie darling hit Ori and the Blind Forest. David and his mate Simon, his former housemate, joined us earlier, and we talked all about making the game, working to weird time schedules, and, where do you go to after you've made this amazing hit? What else are we checking out?
Yeah, so if you ask most gamers, they'll fondly talk about their Steam libraries, but WA's own Tim Colwill this week got us thinking, do we forgive Valve too easily and are too harsh on others?
And lastly, we'll be taking a look at some of our most beloved games that our friends just couldn't quite get into.
That's it. We'll be checking it all out and more. Right now, though, shall we jump in?
We shall.
You're listening to Pixel Sift.
All right, so if you're caught up on gaming news, you may have heard of an article written by a West Australian, Tim Colwill, earlier this week. The article has shone some light on some of the shady tactics that Valve has allegedly used to make Steam the juggernaut it is today.
Shady tactics.
It's less
What do
shady.
you think? What do you think? Is it shady tactics?
It just seems like taking advantage of the rules as they were in a world that may not have been ready for that kind of delivery system, and maybe just I don't think it never was against the law.
What are some of
the
the examples of those tactics?
What are
Mitch?
these shady things?
So basically, I guess one of the first things that he references in his article is the fact that Steam was a requirement when playing Half-Life. You had to install Steam, and it was just one thing that came with the game.
That was everyone's first experience of Steam.
Yeah.
Forced.
And at the time,
Half-Life
people...
2.
Half-Life 2,
number 2.
sorry, Half-Life 2. And people didn't like it at first. And they were kind of weary of it at the beginning, wondering what this thing was, and they weren't sure why it was there. And I guess it created the install base and the initial, groundwork for its relevancy today.
I think what's interesting about this particular issue is that when Steam came out, there was a bit of pushback to it. People did kind of think, what is this piece of software? Why is it being installed on my computer? Do I need this? I have a CD key that I can use to install this piece of software and go from there. But I think it was really, when it started out, it is a DRM, a digital rights management piece of software. And it is there to protect that, because in that sort of early 2000s, late 90s, PC piracy was...
Oh, it's huge.
Rampant.
Huge.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people at the time didn't love it. But as Steam kind of has evolved, and, I installed Steam a little bit after Half-Life 2 came out, when they first started having some other games on the service, not just Valve games entirely.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad. Like there was lots of problems you couldn't do. You couldn't play the games offline at all. There was some sales that you had, but there were some things that were restricted to Australians. And, that people have come out now. I remember when Battlefield 3 came out on PC, Origin, which is EA's online digital storefront, used a very similar system to what Half-Life 2 did, but because everyone was kind of stuck in their ways and were happy with Steam and had made a lot of compromises, but, they were not willing to open up their arms and open up their hearts to a different platform. And realistically, though, think about it. Think about these things like TV channels, right? Just because you like a show doesn't mean that every single channel you watch is just that one channel. There's other shows on other channels, and you might enjoy them.
Yeah.
We're not restricted to that particular...
Electronic Arts isn't the most loved company, though. So, for them to, have a backlash when they try to release something like that is not that surprising. It is ridiculous, though, in its own way that, they're not doing anything differently to Steam, really, fundamentally. So there really was no cause for backlash.
I guess the question was being asked is like, well, how can we hold Steam in such high regard and then seem to just get ready to pounce on every other one?
Well, I think
that seems
before that, I think as far as the shady business that Valve has done is, what we've mentioned, but also the fact that they've fought tooth and nail to avoid legal requirements, basically, as far as refunds go. In Australia, actually, Valve was fined $3 million for its violations of Australian law.
Yeah. Something they fought for ages and ages and ages.
For it. And that's the funniest thing. Like, they fought ages and ages so they didn't have to pay you back $10-15, and they ended up having to pay $3 million. But I think they recorded like a $3 billion profit that year, so who cares? Like, it wouldn't have affected them. Like, it was a small slap on the wrist, basically.
It's really interesting because it's kind of these test cases that you sort of see Australian companies and companies in Europe a lot of the time is where these sort of things kind of happen. The refund policy was a big European Union push that digital goods had to have a refund policy.
But what they did is they basically said you can have a refund, but it's going to be in Valve credit.
Yeah.
So and this is why it's so confusing that Valve is still kind of considered, even though it's not considered great because people know it's not great and it always had problems. But it like for someone I've only been using Steam for the last 12 or so months, 24 months really, and it's not too bad. I don't have really huge problems with it. It sounds like it was a nightmare at some point. But I used to also use Origin very sparingly as well. And same sort of thing. I don't really have much issue with it. I think that's fine. Interestingly enough, this is going up. No, sorry, you go. I was
going to say, though, these things we're talking about, yes, look, it's fine. It's great. They've got refund. You've got credit. You can spend it on the next Steam sale. That's all fine.
Yeah.
Right? These things were things that had to come through. They had to have the hammer dropped on them in a way.
That's what I'm saying. Like, now it's not so bad. I feel that, the Steam of yesteryear is kind of gone. But behind the company is still exactly that, a company that at the moment has a huge monopoly on the service that they provide. Mm-hmm. Because of this really strange stigma around them being the good and everyone else being the bad.
It's one of the big examples of most recent memory where some company has kind of come out and sort of subverted this, but didn't have the same reaction to what I thought would have happened. Destiny 2, little game, you might have heard of it, is going to be released on the Battle.net or the Blizzard App Store rather than through Steam, through Origin, through their own website. Like, that's going to be the patching and social networking program. People generally like the Battle.net stuff.
Battle.net's been great. They've got a really good little feature where you can have all your stuff off on your side screen.
Yep.
Ubisoft have got their own one where you need to log on. I just recently got Ghost Recon Wildlands. Hugely disappointed. But beside the point, I had to go through into all the login stuff and didn't really think much of it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think
it made it streamlined and pretty easy for me. They made it insignificant, really.
And I can tell you what, the Uplay service that was not at that point in the very near past, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, previously it was a real chore, and if you were trying to get into these things, and if there was issues with it, it would just... They basically had an absolute kill switch on their DRM software. So if your internet dropped out, like someone, if it started to rain, if you live in this country called Australia, it cut it out and there was no quick save. You just lost your progress.
What was the old one, gaming on Windows Live?
Yeah, Windows Live. Similar sort of program, sort of an online social networking.
I don't know anybody that used that.
Oh, no, it was terrible.
I used it for one game. Actually, two games, sorry. Dawn of War 2. Used it in the early days before it moved over to Steam. And another game called... I can't even remember. It was a real-time strategy game that I got for nothing, basically.
So do you think that Blizzard is kind of looked upon a bit more favorably because they don't really distribute anyone else's games? It's kind of all their own stuff. I mean, with the exception of Destiny 2 now.
And the fact that all their stuff is beloved by the fans.
Yeah.
They have a really strong rapport with their fans and their users, much unlike a lot of other developers and companies.
I think it's in the same way that Valve stuff on Steam is phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
So if you're playing Dota, if you're playing Counter-Strike, all of that stuff, they put a lot of resources into it and they've got all the
Team
back
Fortress.
They make a big deal to make it work well. Blizzard have the same thing. They've got the resources, they pour it into their own stuff, and it has evolved over time.
I will say, I just got the Steam stats today just to see what was going on as far as current players, etc. go. Top 10 games, Dota 2 and Counter-Strike. 1 and 2, of course.
Yep.
But then you've got like H1Z1, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which is huge at the moment. Got another Team Fortress in there. And then you've got GTA, Ark, Football Manager, Warframe. basically, like the top 10, apart from Dota, which is a free game anyway to download and play.
Free to start.
Yeah, free to start.
Yeah.
And Counter-Strike you can pick up for bugger all. I think full price is $14.99. Besides that, most of the other games that are doing quite well are not Valve games anyway.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't got... There's no reason for them to have this stranglehold on the market, basically. What was I going to say? Okay, and as far as recent help request activity goes on Steam, just to kind of put you to where they are as far as how they deal with their dealings with their customers, etc. So in the last 24 hours, they have had 55,000 refund requests. Account recovery is about 12,000. Purchase and billing support about 2,000, and game tech support about 2,000. That's just a little bit of an eye-opener of what they actually do as far as their help is. And most of it, let's call that, 75% is refund requests.
So hang on, where'd you get these stats
This
from?
is straight from the Steam site.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah, I got a lot of stats on there. You just have to go looking a bit.
That's really...
And unfortunately, Origin doesn't have these kind of stats. That's one thing I will say about Steam. They do throw some stuff up, good or bad.
That's a level of transparency that I wasn't expecting.
I was a bit surprised myself, to be honest.
That is a huge number, 55,000.
In 24 hours.
Yeah, that's quite a lot if you think about that as it goes along.
With about an hour to 2 hour response time.
Yeah, some people will get their refund quickly. I mean, some of the policies as well have kind of become more in line with what the Australian refund policy is. You've got a certain amount of time. You can change your mind for any reason. You've got to return it. But they're usually for purchases or services rendered. You do have a lot of rights in Australian law that aren't being reflected in the thing, and I think that's why the ACCC kind of went after them, because they were saying, look, you're selling to Australian customers, you're making a lot of money off Australian customers.
They tried to say we're not selling in Australia just to the customers, and that's where they kind of got in trouble. You
know what? If you bring back more than $1,000 worth of stuff from overseas, you have to pay GST.
Look, Steam's dominance is not good for anyone. Monopolies are never good, and as much as I think it's an okay service, I think that hopefully something's done about its stranglehold on on its world.
Pretty fly for a Shy Guy. I'm sorry not to abbreviate your username to Shy Guy in the future.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of YouTubers I've seen at the base of their videos around playing short, bad games. They pick up something off Steam for cheap and play under the minimum and get a refund and use the money to buy something else.
That is an interesting way to
exploiting the system.
Game the system.
The system, yeah.
The system.
Yeah, pun intended.
A little bit. Sure, why not?
All right, step down, guys.
Anyway.
That's it. I'm buying you guys a copy of Bad Rats, and you guys can play that on your thing.
Bad Rats.
Oh, look, get on the old YouTubes and check out Bad Rats. Let's jump into our next topic. I'm sure we can talk about Steam.
Yeah, we could, but that's enough. That's had enough bloody press for now.
Let's jump into the next one.
Did you know Pixel Civ is available on other platforms? You can find previous episodes on iTunes, Pocket Casts, YouTube, and on the Pixel Civ website.
Earlier, we spoke to David Clark. He is a game developer. He's a gameplay programmer, in fact, and he actually made one of the games that was sort of the early Xbox One generation's indie hits. It was called Ori and the Blind Forest, and David made it right here in WA in a very interesting sort of situation. We talked to him and we talked to his housemate and pal, Simon Holland, a cinematographer in his own right, about the game that they made and sort of how it came about and what it was like to make a game in a virtual studio.
Basically, the company that developed Ori and the Blind Forest, Moon Studios, is an online company. So all the people are like all around the world. There's people in Austria, in Israel, in Canada. So it's just a bunch of people online talking on Skype. I'm David Clark. I worked on a video game called Ori and the Blind Forest for Xbox One and PC.
My name's Simon Holland, and I'm a cinematographer, and I'm here to tell some funny David stories while he was making Ori and the Blind Forest.
So, David, tell me a little bit about how you sort of started to come and work on Ori and the Blind Forest. How did that happen?
Yeah, sure. So one of my friends who was originally Simon's neighbor, he was working on a game called War Soup with Thomas and Gennady and a couple of other people. And one day I saw him working on it and he was saying something about animations weren't being hooked up right or something. So I was like, oh, let me take a look. and it was being developed in Unity. So I got talking to Thomas Mahler, who was also a friend of mine. Like, we just met online a long time ago, and I got involved in that project. And while they were working on War Soup, me, Thomas, and another guy called James started doing this little project on the side. It was meant to just be a small little platformer game, but as we worked more and more on it, we got new ideas, and other people in the team got interested, and that became like the main product that was being developed. So
it just kind of
it just sort of flowed.
It was honestly the weirdest thing. Like, it was literally just a little side project. War Soup was going to be the big kind of like, this is the money maker. If there's, like the fun project, and this was a little side project, it just got a little bit out of control.
Yeah, originally it was meant to just take 3 months to develop, and it ended up taking 5 years.
It went out of control to critical acclaim.
Yeah.
So you're just talking about that other project you were talking about, War Soup, and how do you know when you've got a point where you've said, okay, well, now we have to switch over to change priorities, if this was the thing that you were kind of pouring all the effort into?
Yeah, it's hard. I think in video game development, you just get a lot of ideas that go on the back burner. So, sometimes you'll be developing something and you'll be like, nah, this can't go anywhere, so you'll ditch it. But like, War Soup is just on the back burner. Hopefully that'll get revisited and turned into some kind of game. But yeah, like, it just depends on interests, like who in the team is interested in it, like what publishers think of the product. There's not really an answer for it.
It's just you feel it.
You just feel it.
So how did you know that this was the project that you were starting to work on? Like, how did you know that was something you should be putting your interest in? Was it publishers that kind of said, hey, you guys should work on this? Or was it something that just kind of happened naturally?
Yeah, I think it was just the publishers were very interested in it because it was like a arty 2D game. There wouldn't be a huge investment of money to develop such a game because 3D games have a much bigger budget because there's a lot more assets to produce, whereas a 2D game is all painted. And I think Microsoft were excited about like a story-based platforming game. So it seemed like a safer option for everyone, and the team was very enthusiastic about making a game like that.
So I think all those doors were open because of War Soup. Like, War Soup was meant to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And the doors started to open on the basis of that. It, like you said before, when we were on the way here, it's kind of like Overwatch. And this was like, 7 or 8 years before Overwatch. So it was that kind of deal. And those doors were open. And when you pitched Ori, then that was a continuity of that.
Yeah.
Well.
So you talked a little bit about this, and some of the early interviews you did. You said that you guys met for the first time at E3. You were a virtual studio that you never had been in the same place until that point where you were showing off your game. What is that sort of work process like? How do you collaborate with people across the world? And do you think this is the future of game development?
I think it is the future. The best thing about working online is that you can get, like, you're not limited to the talent that's just in your local area. Also, I think working from home is really fun because you don't have like a boss peering over your shoulder. So the way that we worked was we used Skype mostly. We experimented with a lot of different things. Like there was Google Wave at one point. That's been discontinued, but it basically became Google Docs. You could type documents and you could see each other typing in there, and you can make modifications in real time. So definitely, like, over the last couple of years, online services, cloud-based storage and all that have played like a really important role to enable this kind of thing to be developed.
How big was the team when you got to release?
Oh, I think it was about 13 or 14 people. We basically, towards the end of production, we got a lot of other people involved because we needed more artists to do all the set dressing. So when we started, we were about 5 people because we just had, like, I was doing the programming. There was Ari doing QA and some tools in the editor. Gennady was like lead programmer, so he was sort of directing the project, making sure it was on the programming level, like working out. Thomas was the main, he's like the head of the studio. Him and Gennady are the heads of the studio, but Ori was like his idea, right? And James was the animator, and Max was an artist. So that was like 6 people, I think I've just said. And then we got like more artists. So So yeah, the team grew towards the end.
I guess that's why you moved to London, because the time zone here is just killer.
Yeah, I was basically working during the night, and the problem with that is, like, if you're working 9 to 5 hours in Europe, but you're living in Australia, then you end up staying up till like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. But then when you're in crunch mode, I ended up staying up until like 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. I actually got into this like weird pattern at some point where I'd finish my workday at like 8 a.m. in the morning, and then I'd just like go to the beach and enjoy a bit of sunshine because I hadn't been out all day, and then go home and sleep from like 11 till 4 or something to get like 5, 6, 7 hours. It depended on how close we were to a deadline, but it wasn't a healthy lifestyle, so I moved over to Europe.
Yeah, he'd forget to eat for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Is there a hangover from success? Like, arguably, Ori was as good as you're ever going to succeed with an indie game. It was like bestseller, won a BAFTA, won a bunch of awards.
Yeah.
What the day after that? What happens? Like, I feel like the drive would go because you're like, well, we won the Olympics. You know, I can retire.
The notch phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really strange. Like I was expecting that, but like, you know, when the game gets awards and stuff, you're like, oh, that's incredible. Like that's really awesome. But it's not the same. Like it's not. You don't get such a high from it as you'd expect. You know, because I mean, you know that it's a team effort and you're very proud of the team and everything. But like, you still. I don't know. I think the most enjoyable part of making a game is making the game and then reading the first like couple of reviews, seeing other people play it, that kind of stuff. Like my absolute favorite thing is just watching a Twitch streamer play my game. I play Ori and the Blind Forest because I can see them struggling at certain bits, and you know it's just so much fun. But like when it's an award, it's just like it's incredible to get that award, but like it doesn't seem to mean as much to me as I thought it would.
Do you think there's a different type of expectation then from the people who are giving out awards versus the people who are playing games? And do you feel like it'd be much better to please the people playing at home rather than someone who wins an award?
Yeah, definitely you want to please, but it's hard pleasing the people because, you know, one person will say that the balance of the game is perfect and another person will say it's way too hard, so you can't cater to everyone. You sort of have to just...
I had a couple of friends that I mentioned that I was chatting to you last night, and they said, look, what you need to do is you need to punch him for the Ginso tree because...
the
Ginso tree?
The Ginso tree, yeah.
Because it was very difficult. But they said it's an amazing, beautiful game, something phenomenal, but...
Yeah, we're like well aware that the Ginso tree was a massive difficulty spike, but when you finally complete it, when you finally manage to do the whole thing without making any mistakes, like it's so satisfying. I've seen like Twitch streamers that are just like yelling and screaming, and then they get to the top and they're like, "Whew! Oh, that feels so incredible." You know, the satisfaction is based on how difficult something is. But actually, when we made the definitive edition of Ori, we tried to address that by making an easy mode. And in easy mode, if you get halfway up the Ginso tree, it actually makes a checkpoint. Like, so it should be a bit easier for people. But
yeah,
that's no fun. You got to play it. You got to play every game at medium to start.
Yeah,
you can't go easy and then just plow through the narrative. It needs to be how they designed it, like how they wanted you to play it.
If Dark Souls has taught us anything, people like to be punished. So
yeah,
don't be friends with people that are playing Dark Souls. Yeah, they're horrible to be around.
We were playing Dark Souls when we were working on Ori, so there were a lot of kind of influences.
David, you've moved to Liverpool now. Do you think you'd ever make the trip back to Australia and be part of the Australian game development scene, or is it are you firmly rooted there now?
One word for you, mate. 200 megabits. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm just in England at the moment. I'm really enjoying living in England because I've got some relatives there. I've got a girlfriend. She's Scouse. But I do kind of miss the summers in Australia and the beach and the barbecues.
But you can always come back for, you know, your birthday, and you can come back for a holiday.
Dark Ages internet.
Dark Ages internet, exactly. Well, look, David, Simon, thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you. Good luck with everything. We're going to be very excited to see what happens in the future.
Cool. Thank you. And thank you to all the sifters for keeping it going.
David Clark, gameplay programmer of Ori and the Blind Forest. Ori and the Blind Forest made by Moon Studios, which is a virtual studio. It doesn't actually exist in the real world. It all exists on the internet where we like to keep things. And also thanks to Simon Holland, who is a cinematographer, a video producer, does a whole bunch of cool stuff.
Just a general champ as well.
Just a nice guy. Came in, told us interesting stories about Dave and, making fun of him as he's spending the late nights making this game.
Did he call our fans sifters?
Yeah, I know. It's in my head. I love it.
Say hi to the sifters. Sifters, stick around because we're going to jump into our next topic.
Oh, man.
You're listening to Pixel Sift. Or you might be watching Pixel Sift on Twitch. Pixel Sift.
So we all have our favourite video games, our personal go-tos, when we first sit down and switch on our systems. But we all have that one game that's just for us, one that our friends just can't seem to sink their teeth into, but you can't get enough of. Are we crazy, or are they just playing it wrong?
Crazy, mate.
Every time.
Look,
yeah, go on.
Look, I tell you, the game that comes to mind for me, and I've talked about this on many
Countless
occasions.
times.
Many occasions. Final Fantasy VII, the original PlayStation game. If you didn't play it in the PlayStation era and you're not of that thing, like I've introduced it to, like my brother has played it. He played it in our house. That's fine. His friends who didn't play that game at the time just don't get it. And just think it's weird and like really slow.
If you weren't around for that time when that game was out, like it was cult, instant,
huge.
It was massive. It was just like the bee's knees, and obviously anybody who had it or got into it was just like incredibly into it. And I snoozed on that. I had friends that were onto it, and I didn't have a PlayStation until many years later, so I didn't get to experience it until many years later. But I'd missed out. I understand completely what they were on about, and it was me being crazy. They were right.
Yeah, it was. Well, look, this is the thing. I think that a lot of experience is where you are in a certain place and time, and you don't know exactly what other people are doing at that time. Maybe they're having different experiences.
It was a very involved game as well. So it's something you could just casually pick up.
No, exactly right. And it was 3 discs at the time on PlayStation,
that's right.
which was massive. And actually for us, it really helps that we played it so much because originally. And this used to be the case. Mitch, you may not remember this.
Okay,
but
we're back here
It's
now.
one of these things again. Yeah.
The PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2 did not have built-in memory in any capacity.
No.
So you had to buy a memory card. And we bought a PlayStation and we had the game, but it was like
megabyte ones as well.
And
$50 for a memory card. So that's the cost of a game. So we didn't buy a memory card. We just played through the first disc repeatedly and kept the power on.
I kept Gran Turismo on for 3 days when I first bought it.
Yeah. Don't want to lose your progress.
Did you also ride your chariot to the store to get that?
Mate, we didn't even have chariots. We had to walk uphill both ways through the snow.
Both ways.
Yeah.
How many wolves?
Heaps of wolves. And they all had memory cards and it was really, really bad.
Anyways.
Go on. So, Mitch, you've got some games.
What games have you loved but your friends have not?
I like Dust and Elysian's Tale.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
fun.
Lots of people like that game.
Yeah.
But my friends don't.
They're popular games.
Bad example.
Yeah, it's a bad example, but I was just, my friends all look at it, they go, all the dude does is he spins around and hits things. I'm like, that's awesome. He spins around and hits things. That's the best.
Okay.
And
I'm going to buy
trying to
Mitch one of those
convince-
whirly birds so you can just like spin in the wind.
Or a fidget spinner.
Oh.
Fidget spinner. Yeah. Get on that
Getting right topical and relevant.
topical trend.
Anyways.
Nick brought one in today and not
fidget spinning.
happy with the fidget spinner.
So
The important thing I think we all need to recognize here is that Scott has some strong opinions about The Last of Us, which
Yes.
are very wrong. And I think he is just playing it wrong.
Exactly. No, I think I am playing it wrong. And so this was brought up last time that playing it on the hardest setting is the only option. And I think that would have helped with some of my issues with it. But and I think I will like it. I'm going to go back and give it another shot. So stop with the hate mail. It's totally unnecessary. I don't need it.
Most of that's just from Nick over there.
But another really popular one that Nick's probably going to hate that I didn't like, just couldn't get into because it was just not enough reward and whatever. The Souls series.
Uh-oh.
Pick one. Demons, Darks. I haven't played Dark Souls 2.
The Bournes.
I haven't played. The Bourne was okay. Dark Souls 2, I won't play. I just won't do it. But it's just not my kind of game. I feel that I would waste a lot of time on it, and I'd feel at the end of it after I'd finished that I'd wasted too much time on a game that I didn't get enough out of. But other ones I personally don't like. Any Need for Speed. Since,
Oh, really?
Since the
Okay.
originals. Like the first
What
couple.
about, what's your position on
when
Hot
they're on
Pursuit
PC?
2, or the original Hot Pursuit 2?
Hot Pursuit original was good. I can't remember 2. I can't remember the differences.
They're pretty similar.
But see, that all those that little era of games with Need for Speed, they're all similar.
Where do you sit on the Burnout series?
Burnout is pretty fun, and that's not in the same group for me. It's barely a racing game.
Yeah.
The Crew, as far as racing games, that thing was a joke.
Who loved that game though? Did you have some?
No,
I
but
actually
but I was
don't
pushed into
know.
buying it.
Yeah, I
By
actually
Mitch.
don't know anyone who actually enjoyed The Crew. I'm sorry to say, but I was very
was a
excited
joke.
for it.
And just while we're staying topical, I mentioned it earlier in the show. Ghost Recon, my friend Sean that I play with, you guys might be familiar with me dropping his name all the time because that's who I play Battlefield, etc. with. He is a huge Ubisoft fan, which I just can't dig. So he was.
We're not going to introduce him to Oscar Britton.
No, that's funny because last time Oscar was on, The Division had just come out, and Sean was all about that, and Oscar was like, hate. But anyway, I bought Wildlands, and it's a poor man's Far Cry. And another one from Ubisoft's Rainbow Six Siege. Disappointment.
James loves that game.
It's a good game when you finally get to play it.
Yeah.
But slow load times, or if the team kills or whatever, you have bad people with you, game's over like that.
I think the important thing to sort of remember about this is kind of what we came to in the beginning, is that like in a certain time and place, like I know for a fact that I would love the Final Fantasy 15 or 16, whatever the most recent one is now.
Yep.
I love those games. They're really great. I just know that I absolutely do not have time to even touch them.
That's why I don't play
wouldn't
WoW
be
and
able,
shit.
I wouldn't be able to play it, so I'm not even going to look at it.
I think like nothing really is as embarrassing as like you're showing someone the game and they're like, "This is the best thing ever. This is the best thing ever," and then sit next to you going,
Yeah, okay, mate.
Do you know what this happens more with rather than video games?
Movies?
Board games. If you try to tell people how to play a board game, you're like, stick with it. It's really good when you get it. But yeah, they don't get it often.
Games, on the flip side, games that I loved that my friends didn't love. Gran Turismo, of course, all of them. I love my car games, but I don't have any car game playing friends at all.
Yeah.
So I'm alone there.
Yeah.
Pro Evo, and this is going back to like Pro Evo 4, I think, back in like...
I think you're going to have to clarify what you mean by that.
So Pro Evolution Soccer.
Yeah.
If you're down with the kids, they call it Pro Evo.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm a Pro Evo soccer person, and obviously the world is predominantly FIFA. I haven't played for many years now because I just fell out of favour.
Because no one would play with you.
Because no one would play with me. But yeah, that's...
Is that Pro Evo is the one with all the fake names and all the characters? Isn't it? Like the
yeah, basically. Yeah.
the Perth soccer boys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We did talk about it in one of the early episodes of Pixel
Perth
Soup,
Jets.
didn't we?
No.
Perth
Yes,
Jets.
we did. We did. We talked about this earlier. It was one of the first very episodes.
Yeah.
And also Res was something I really loved, but nobody would even give the time. But whatever, that's because I'm an audio and music person, I guess. Whatever.
Just a nerd of some variety.
Yeah, something.
Look, you must be a nerd of some variety because you've listened to a whole episode of Pixel
'Cause you're a
Sift.
sifter.
You're a sifter. This is all
That's
the time
not going away, is it?
No, it's here to stay. Thanks, Simon, for introducing us to that one. Look, we do a show every fortnight. Actually, we do shows every week, but we do an episode every
We
fortnight.
do one of these every fortnight.
And you can find all those on our website, which is pixelsift.com.au.
That's it.
We are available on a multitude of different podcasting platforms, aren't we, Mitch?
Yes, we are. So we are on our website. You can stream the episodes off there. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, or using Casts is just a stupid word to say along. It's lost its meaning now.
Google
Yeah.
Play in the US as well.
Google Play in the US and the RSS link on our page. And and we go live every fortnight, as Johnny just mentioned. And our next actual episode of Pixel Civ will be on the 8th of June.
Perfect. Nice one. What's your name?
The other one.
This
Scott.
guy.
Yeah, the other
Beard
guy.
boy. We have social media.
We do. We have facebook.com/pixelsift.
That's a little video joke for you people out there watching at home.
/pixelsift, twitch.tv/pixelsift, youtube.com/pixelsifTAU.
That's correct. Thanks for joining us. That's all we've got time for. We will see you guys again this time on the 8th of June.
Peace out.
See you then. Bye.
Hey, when am I going to be a mod on the...
You're not a mod.
Can I?
No.
No? Okay.